I'm going to do our last little bit, which, like I said, one of our core things here at Capital Republic Women is focusing on networking and professional development. And one of those great aspects, when we've had some amazing speakers talk about their personal experience and give advice, but just in general, you always need to know how best to interact with people and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Shelby Wright. I know Shelby mainly because she sang at my wedding. And her husband is the music minister at our church. But some other amazing things about her is what she does professionally. And she is a certified senior trainer for Dale Carnegie. And she works mainly exclusively with the Dell accounts, but she has stepped on here to kind of give us just a little taste of some of the tools and skills you can learn with Dale Carnegie. And she's even offered, if people are interested, we might do another special 1 or 2 off workshops featuring Dale Carnegie material. So definitely give us your feedback. And with that, I will turn it over to Shelby. She has some fun interactive stuff for us to participate and learn these skills. Thank you so much, Shelby, for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. There's so much to cover, and we have 11 minutes to do it, so we better jump in. While I ask, in Dale Carnegie, we like to start with a warm-up question. I mean, it's 7:50 at night. We've all had a long day, so let's get our minds focused in on the topic. So our topic today is, how do we engage in difficult or just in general? How do we engage politely in conversations? And then how do we exit gracefully in conversations? And so that's our topic today. So let's type in the chat box, what are some of your challenges that you face when you're engaging in conversations or when you're trying to exit them? So type in the chat. And then Cassie, if you could just enable screen sharing for me, that would be awesome. And Dale Carnegie, we're all about participation, so please do not hesitate to ask questions or participate. And just let me know whenever we can enable screen sharing. I can help with that too. All right, let's hear some of these. Making sure I'm actively listening. That can be so tough. So Mia, tell us about that. Why is it so hard to be an active listener when we're engaged in conversation?
I think mostly because we are so focused on what we're going to say next. So we're focusing on what we're saying next, and we're not actually listening to what the person who's talking is saying.
Yeah. I had a participant one time tell me there's a difference between listening to understand and listening to respond. And it's our job, if we really want to be relationship builders, then we have to go in with a mindset of, how can I listen to understand rather than just listen to respond? So you're not alone in that. I think we all struggle with that. There's so many things that can distract us when we're having conversations with people, maybe even more so now in our virtual environment. We've got the dogs barking, kids jumping in, spouses, all these different things happening in the background, and it can really distract us from what's happening in the moment. So thanks for your thoughts there as well. And let's see, Brittany said endless Zoom and Teams meetings. Yes, there's a new disease out there today. It's not COVID, but it's Zoominitis. So what someone told me, that we're on Zoom calls all day long, or Teams, and we get to that networking event or that happy hour or a professional development like this, and we just feel like I have nothing left in the tank. I've been on these calls all day. So it can be really hard to get that energy back, to really engage and connect with people. Well, if you know anything about Dale Carnegie training, and it looks like a couple of you do, Dale Carnegie was a real person, and he started his training company back in 1912. So we're over 100 years old. He's known as the father of self-help. But if you've never heard of him before, I bet you've heard of his most famous book, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And when I was thinking about our topic tonight and what content I wanted to pull, I couldn't do anything except pull straight from that book, because that book is really a foundational book in this world about how to really connect with people. And whether we're going into a conversation we're excited about or going into a maybe difficult conversation, these principles that we're going to look at can help us to be successful in those conversations and set us up for success when we're ready to leave the conversation. So if we take a look at the screen right now, there are 9 principles. These are essentially the first 9 chapters of Dale Carnegie's book. So let's think about these principles in the context of having those meaningful conversations. And in the chat box, type the number of the principle you think is the most important to having a successful conversation. So the number of the principle you think is the most important to having a successful conversation. Okay, Miss Cassie, she says number 1 and 9. Tell us why those 2 for you.
Nobody wants to be criticized. And if you're criticizing, they're not going to hear anything else you say. And that kind of folds into number 9. If you make someone feel like you're investing in them, that they're the important person in the conversation, then you can build on that foundation.
That's so true. You know, especially with everything that's been going on in the world, just even politically right now, you know, we all have our own voices and differences of opinion. But if we start a conversation or we start building a relationship and we go in with that negative mindset of, I'm going to criticize this person or I don't agree with their viewpoints, then we're not going to be able to have that genuine, successful conversation. And then absolutely number 9 is, how can we make people feel important? You know, Dale Carnegie said that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in them than you can in 2 years by trying to get people to care about you. So people don't really care about you. Well, they do. We all care about other people, but what we really care about is we care about ourselves. And so if we can make other people feel important, they're more likely to want to engage with us in the future. Okay, Justin says number 8. So Justin, tell us why number 8 for you, talking in terms of the other person's interest.
Well, I did not know you were going to call on me.
Well, that's just how we roll in Dale Carnegie.
It is. So I've learned working in the Capitol until like 3 weeks ago that most people, whether they're inherently political or mission driven, like someone from the lobby, is that they want to hear that you care about them and what it is they aspire to.
Exactly.
So talking in terms of whatever it is, either your constituent or someone from the lobby or their clients or an agency person, letting them know that you understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to accomplish is one of the more important things you can do from a professional standpoint. And from a personal standpoint, of course, they want to know that you're actively listening, not passively listening, and trying to just get through the conversation because you've got other stuff to do with your day.
Yes. And I'm sure we can all agree that we've been in a conversation with someone where we knew they weren't really listening, that they had a million better things that they felt like they could be doing, and they were just being polite. And that is so awkward. So for us, it takes really that attitude of intention. So when we start a conversation, is our intention that I'm going to focus on this other person? I'm going to put away distractions. I'm going to take a deep breath. Maybe you've just had to deal with, you know, a crying kid, and now you're going in trying to have a one-on-one with someone. So how can you make sure you're setting yourself up too for success, taking that deep breath and then really thinking about how can I put my focus on the other person? And I know when we're networking, obviously we're trying to get something out of it too, right? We're trying to meet new people, get our ideas across, or find people that can connect us to the people we want to be connected with. And I will tell you, if you go in with that attitude of putting others first and being genuinely interested in other people, that blessing for you is going to come. It's going to come because if people feel like you care about them, they're going to be so excited to help you with whatever it is that you're looking for when you're having that networking event or having that conversation. One that's on here that I didn't see anyone pick, and these are all important. There's no wrong or right answer. But number 5, smile. Man, I miss being able to see people smiling, just seeing people smiling in person. I mean, we can see it on Zoom, but I really miss that. And our smile, Dale Carnegie says, is a messenger of our goodwill. It tells people that we are excited to see them, that we can't wait to engage in that conversation. So I really encourage you, even if you're on Zoom, smile, try to force yourself, even though it feels weird because we just feel like we're talking to a computer screen. Remember that there are real people beyond the computer screen, and a smile can carry so much weight, and our body language, our facial expressions really play such a huge role in how we communicate, because we can be saying all the right things, but if our attitude, if our facial expressions aren't in alignment, then our ideas aren't going. So this first set of principles, we might look at them and go, okay, I've heard of this before, and I hope you have. I hope we were taught this growing up, right? That we should be kind, we should appreciate others, be a good listener, and make people feel important. But in Dale Carnegie, what we say is, yeah, these principles, they're common knowledge principles, but are they commonly practiced? And that, again, it goes back to setting that intention. So for your next one-on-one or networking opportunity, what we're going to do is we're going to challenge ourselves to just pick one of these principles. And by the way, I saw someone put in the chat box that they still carry around a golden book that they've had for years, which is incredible. You have no idea how many people tell me that. And I think it's amazing because I've lost like at least 100 of them. But what they are little booklets that normally when we're in person, we would give you just a booklet that has all 30 of Dale Carnegie's principles from his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But today I will give you a digital copy. So you can have a digital copy. I'll put it in the chat box for you to download. And I can also send it to Cassie so that she can email it out. But this way you can have your own just personal digital copy of all of these principles. But back to making our commitment, because it's not helpful just to look at these principles. We actually have to do something with them. So take a minute and think about, what is one principle that you can commit to applying in your next networking or one-on-one opportunity that you have to build relationships with someone else. And then think about what would be the positive result if you were to intentionally go in using that principle. And then let one of your fellow friends, colleagues, or one of the fabulous people on this call know how it went. So for example, maybe you're going to commit to principle number 6, to whenever you're in conversation with someone, you're going to really make sure you remember their name and can pronounce it correctly. Or maybe you're not a natural smiler and you know it. And so maybe you're going to go in with the intention, okay, on my next one-on-one or my next networking, whether it's in person or online, I'm going to make sure I smile. So just pick one. Don't try to do all of them because we're human and, it's hard to do all of them. But just pick one principle that you can commit to going into your next networking or building relationships opportunity, and then be sure to have someone help keep you accountable. And I know you have someone like Cassie or just someone else in this call, but it's so important to have that accountability. And again, I will share all of Dale Carnegie's principles from that book in the chat box. So once we've set ourselves up for success and we are focused on building trust-based relationships, really helping, trying honestly to see things from the other person's point of view, being genuinely interested in them. Sometimes we're just ready for the conversation to end. And it doesn't mean we don't like the person, but sometimes we got somewhere to go, or we got to use the restroom, or you know what, we've wanted to go to this networking event and we have 30 people we want to meet, and this one person is monopolizing our time. So here are just a few tips as we end to gracefully leave the conversation. So the first tip that I have is to introduce them to someone else. If you're at a networking event in person or something, you just say something like, wow, I'm just going to pick on Cassie. Cassie, based on our conversation, I really think you should get to know Bob. Allow me to walk over and introduce you. Then you've set them up for success. They're going to be meeting someone that they should want to talk to, and you can gracefully leave. The next tip is to let them know how you will keep in touch. This is what I do, 99% of the time. So this is good for church. This is good for, now Cassie knows all my secrets, but number 2 is probably the one I use the most. So letting them know, how can you keep in touch? So you're ending the conversation. So you say something like, Cassie, it's been so wonderful to talk with you. Let's exchange business cards and keep in touch. Or, hey, could we connect on LinkedIn, and then find each other on LinkedIn and say, it's been great, and then move on with your day. So that's always letting them know, hey, I see you as being important, and I want to connect with you again in the future. But it also gives you an easy way to move on to the next person or the next thing you need to do. Third tip is just to be considerate of your time. So it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I don't want to monopolize your time. So have a great rest of the evening. I'm sure we'll bump into each other again, right? So it's still friendly, and you kind of put it in their court that I'm thinking of you. We've already spent so much time. Maybe it's time we move on, or maybe it's, I want to let you move on so you can continue networking. But my best tip is really just to be honest. And you don't have to I even Googled some extra tips that were outside of my realm. And some of them were like, do a fake phone call. I think don't do that. That's not, so we were talking about being classy earlier. I don't know if that's really classy, and it's lying too. So I don't recommend that. I just say be honest. So I appreciate your conversation, Cassie, but I really must be going now, or I promised myself I would meet 10 people tonight, so I better keep on moving. So whatever tip you use to gracefully exit the conversation, just be honest. So you don't have to make up a fake story about how your kid needs something, or you need to go do, I don't know, you need to make a phone call. Although I'm sure we've had to do that before. But I always just say honesty is the best policy. So be honest, let them know that, hey, I appreciate you. And something to note, in all of these tips, end your conversation by helping make them feel important and showing some of that appreciation. Going back to our principles, I really enjoyed meeting you because of this, being specific. Or Cassie, wow, I'm so glad that we could connect on music and whatever it was we were talking about, right? So bring up a point of conversation you enjoyed, something you appreciated about them, and then just gracefully exit the conversation. So these are just a few tips. I'm curious, we have so many amazing smart minds on the call. Are there any tips we're leaving out, or anyone have a question based on these tips for leaving the conversation? We can type in the chat. We can just come on audio. Questions, comments? These all sound great.
They definitely all sound great to me. I do sometimes have trouble spending too much time talking to one person. Not that I don't enjoy talking to them or it's not a benefit, but it's not just how to get out of it, but recognizing like we have fulfilled all that we're going to do here. Let's move. I know that's a challenge for me.
Yeah, no, and that just goes back to knowing ourselves, right? Do we tend to be the person who keeps the conversation going, or are we keeping track of that? And it's not like we want to be staring at our watch the whole time or checking our phone, but I think, just being ready and excited to go meet the next person or do the next thing and keeping that in mind. I do see there is a question in the chat box. Mia says, do you have tips on remembering name? It's so important, and I'm the first to admit I'm terrible at it. Well, Mia, you are not alone. In fact, we have an entire class on remembering names in Dale Carnegie. But I would say quick tips, because I know we're out of time now, but some quick tips. Number 1 would be to repeat the person's name back to them. So it sounds basic, but especially if it's a name you haven't heard before or a unique name, sometimes we don't want to be awkward. And so we don't want to repeat their name again and make it sound like we can't understand them, or I don't know, we don't know how to say their name. People like you to say their name correctly. So don't be afraid. Oh, could you repeat that for me? Did I say that correctly? And try to use their name at least twice in the conversation. Your mind's more likely to remember it that way. The second tip for remembering names is to add imagery to their name. So for example, maybe if I was trying to remember Cassie's name, I don't know. I only know Cassie, so I'm picking on Cassie. But if I was trying to remember Cassie's name, so Cassie Daniel Howell, I can remember Howl like a wolf howling. And I can remember Cassie because it's actually one of my favorite girl names and I love it. So it's just one of my favorite names. So Cassie and Howl, so put some imagery behind the name, like a wolf or something like that, to help your brain remember it. Dale Carnegie says our mind works best in pictures. So I actually do that when I introduce myself. Like if I'm at a networking event, I say, hi, my name is Shelby Wright, like the Shelby Mustang. Or like Shelby from Steel Magnolias. We're Texas women here. We know that movie. I was named after Shelby, okay? And yes, my wedding was pink, pink, pink. And yes, so I always give some sort of imagery to other people to help make it easy for them. So if you can think of something that helps your name to be easily remembered, you'll help the other person you're talking to feel at ease, so they won't forget your name either. So don't be afraid to help other people remember your name while you're trying to remember theirs. But I do have an entire session on remembering names, and maybe that's something we could do in the future. Well, I know we're out of time and there's so much we could have gone into, but I just want to leave you with this thought, and then I'll put the golden book in the chat box. Again, Dale Carnegie said, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. So go out there, put the other person first. And remember, when we're dealing with people, we're dealing with creatures of emotion, not creatures of logic. Thanks so much for having me. I'll put the golden book in the chat box, and you all have an amazing night.